Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful Ignite. Thank you all for being here today. We are very excited. We have put together a fantastic session for you. And with that, it is my distinct honor to invite Brenna Robinson onto the stage to get us started.
Thanks so much, Gabe. My name is Brenna Robinson, and I'm the general manager of our SMB unit here at Microsoft. Distinct pleasure of mine, serving everywhere from single individual companies to companies that have thousands of people in them. So a really, really broad base. I work at Microsoft now, but I haven't always. In the last 10 years in growth companies or startups, really driving growth. And I see the unique opportunity, having experienced it, for AI in this space. We talk a lot about enterprise here at Ignite, right? Which makes a ton of sense. Microsoft has a lot of enterprise customers. But when it comes to AI, I really think some of the greatest value is going to come from our smaller and growing businesses. So AI is here now. In 2024, we did a research report, and we asked some of our customers and companies, how many of you are using AI right now? So you might be surprised, 80% of employees inside of small and medium businesses are using AI today. If you run one of these businesses, a head of IT or a partner, you might be kind of scared about that, right? Like, what sort of AI are they using? And we see on the other side of the slide that only 60% of the leaders in that company have a plan, which is interesting, right? The employees are using it, but there's no organized strategy about how to implement it or manage or train on it. We think this is an incredible opportunity. We know that small businesses are nimble, and they often lead in technology, right? Both because they have to. I remember days leading marketing for a startup, right? You've got to be nimble and jump on technology to often beat your larger competitors, and because they can. And I think we're really excited to partner with SMBs on that. No reason to be afraid about not having a plan. I think a lot of people don't have a plan with AI right now. But we're saying sort of now is the time to develop a plan because AI is already in your organization. So we said, what's the value of AI? I get this question all the time. Sounds super, super cool. Hard to spend money on things that are cool or that your customers like. So particularly in our business, we went and talked to our customers that are using AI. And we're like, how is it actually helping you? And we were pretty pleasantly surprised to say, oh, 350% ROI. It's a pretty good investment. I don't know how many people do ROI for your salespeople or your head count, but like, seems like something I'd spend a couple of bucks on, right? And obviously there's skepticism with AI. We totally get that. So we wanted to say, okay, how is it really adding value? We see it a lot with streamlining internal processes, making the hard things easy, and driving productivity kind of on both ends. And we see this help people thrive in what we know is like a really fast-paced environment. So where does that ROI show up? We see it at the top end in increased revenue, which is pretty cool, right? We all want to make more money on the top end, increase our growth. When I talk to small and medium businesses, I don't care if they're 2 people or 1,000, it's all about growth. It's all about adding new customers, scaling new products, right? We see growth is the #1 priority for these businesses, and we're seeing an increase in revenue, which we're super excited about. But the other part of that story, kind of the side of that coin, is the reduction in operating costs. So you're making more money and you're saving time. I think you hear a lot about saving time. We talk about operating costs, right? People not having to go to as many meetings, kind of the emails, that constant flurry of busy work. But we also see revenue, and then with the cost savings, which is a really nice combination. And the third pillar, which I love, which we know is super important for any long-term business growth, is employees are happier. Happier employees work harder. Happier employees don't leave the company. I certainly know in my coworkers, and we're about to talk to a customer who had an experience like this, where everyone's enjoying their work more, and they're able to do the stuff they love and not as much busy work. So at the end of the day, we think it makes a pretty good case. You're making money, you're saving money, and the people that are doing the work for you are hopefully having a little bit of a better time. Taking a big step back on the world of Copilot, right? We have a lot of things going on. Really, it's grounded in BizChat for web and work, right? This is a chat that has all the information in the web, like you might be familiar with other tools, but also your business data, right? Your information, all protected. And when we go back to that 80% of all the employees in every single person's company that is actively in AI right now, we really want those chat experiences to be protected, right, inside of our own systems. On top of that, we recently launched a product called Copilot Pages. You may have heard of it maybe this week or a couple of weeks ago. That's a way where we take that biz chat value, kind of the chat you're having, and instead of leaving it in the chat tool, bringing it into a single platform. So you could have a great chat conversation, researching competitors or business trends. You could share it with your coworker, and then you have a shared platform, right? So it doesn't just exist in the chat tool. The third thing, and I have to say I kind of have a favorite here, is the apps. Like, we hear so much from our SMBs. They tend to create more than consume, right? They create documents, they're making pitch decks, they're writing emails. And the really cool thing about Copilot is that it exists in the apps that our customers love and use every single day. I know when you get people out of workflows, you waste time and you're less efficient. So you're not having to write an email on a different platform, copying and pasting it. It all exists inside of Outlook. And I think that's where we see this incredible efficiency in people's time, because they're not having to jump around just in your native flow of work. If you're trying to draft an email or make a Word document, you start off with suggestions right out of the gate. And then the fourth big piece for us is Copilot Studio. You hear a lot about agents, right? This is incredibly exciting for small businesses, that we can create agents based on data that's inside of the network or outside your ERP or CRM to train agents to do activities that almost humans would do. Some really, really cool examples I see small businesses do are things like sales or customer service, where you're really comparing the cost almost to the cost of a headcount, in which case it's always going to be more efficient. I remember this very vividly. Last January, we launched Copilot for M365 for these audiences, small and medium businesses. And in those 11 months, we developed 150 capabilities. Honestly, we can't even keep this slide up to date, right? Because we're always adding more and more and more features. You heard some yesterday, some fresh new ones. Really excited about Excel here. I think a lot of people are excited about Excel. We know Excel is one of the most used apps that we see in small and medium businesses. So really making all of the pieces better and better every day. All the feedback I met with a ton of partners and customers here. Every single meeting, I'm taking notes and we're going in to continue to optimize and build the product to make it as successful as humanly possible. I talked a little bit about Studio before. So AI agents are really changing the game in terms of how business operate. When you think of Microsoft 365 for Copilot, it's more of a personal assistant. But this really changes the way that businesses operate and how they can work with each other. We all know that businesses live on data. And I find often in SMBs, they live in a bunch of different platforms. So what's really great is this can build data from any over 1,400 connections, and you can use that data to train agents to do things autonomously for you. Back to the making your employees happier. Here, we can train these agents to make decisions and then allow employees to make higher level choices, right? So some great examples from our customers is where they have an agent responding to that first inbound request for customer service. If anyone's ever had a customer service job or a sales job where you get those emails, you know time is of the essence, right? Like if somebody's out of the office and they're not getting back to a customer, you're losing goodwill out of the gate. So I've seen a customer use an agent to do that first response, right? Answer the questions and then pull back to product level data about the products that they sell to even answer questions out of the gate. Oh, a little bit more about this product, right? It's not just like an automatic chat tool, it's actually bringing data about that product, saying these are frequently asked questions about this product that you're emailing. Then by the time you bring in a human, because we all know humans are involved, they've already answered kind of the easy questions, the FAQs, the things that we normally do, which just saves a ton of time for businesses. And then your employees are the ones fielding the calls, taking the emails, which is hard work, right? And often not the most fun, don't have to answer those same things over and over again, and they're doing more strategic, higher level work. So it's not just a tool. We believe it's a platform. I'm about to bring someone from Newman's Own to talk about her experience in marketing, but at Microsoft, we call ourselves Customer Zero. And there's almost no individual group that doesn't benefit from Copilot. Even really interesting things like HR that are tired of fielding the same questions over and over again, right? And imagine that you're the only HR person at a company, and I know there's lots of companies like this. They don't have time to answer every question about what days off, or where's the benefits, or where can I find open enrollment. Legal as well, we find groups that have huge amounts of data where people used to have to sort through to find that right report. It's all done. Those people's jobs now are just compiling things instead of having to hunt down data. So we see that it helps across all areas of the business, not just in IT, not just in marketing or sales, but there's pretty much no area where it doesn't work. Now I am going to invite on stage Riley from Newman's Own. Join me in welcoming Riley. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Riley, for joining me.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're all familiar with this logo. Yes? Well, the salad dressing fame, you can't go to a grocery store without it. Only 50 people in Newman's Own, is that right?
Yeah, we're a small company.
Which you probably wouldn't know. Talk about a business making a big impact. So you've been using Copilot for the last few months. What was a day in the life before you used Copilot for your social media role?
So a day in the life, in social media, people don't think about how much writing there actually is involved in social media. So I had to write briefs for influencers, answer emails, plan out our captions for TikTok and Instagram. And being a small team, there's just a lot of work to have to do, and especially a lot of writing.
Definitely. So how has it changed since you've used Copilot?
So a big way it's changed is, for me personally, writing's not my favorite part of the social media job. I like creating more content. So I'm able to take something that could take me a couple hours to do and streamline it to 45 minutes to an hour. And it's giving me more time to get back to my favorite part of the job.
That's awesome. And what was the leadership impact in terms of Copilot? How did you get started? How did your organization get started using Copilot?
So our CEO actually was a really big champion for Copilot. In our town halls, he would always talk about trying to encourage us to use AI and incorporate it into our daily workflow. It's going to be the future, and Copilot was one of his favorite. So afterwards, our IT reached out to me and asked me if I would want to try it out, especially in being in a creative role. And I was excited to see how it could streamline my work and help me be more efficient in my job.
That's so interesting. So it sounds like it definitely came from the top.
Yes.
And then since you've been using Copilot in your role, what successes have you had? Have you had any things that have worked really well for you?
So we've actually had some really big successes. We actually launched a campaign on Monday on our Newman's Own Instagram channel and our TikTok, go check it out, that we were able to use Copilot to help write our organic social strategy and some of our posts and our captioning as well. I was able to use Copilot to help come up with campaign hashtags, or maybe those times in a campaign I'd feel a little bit stuck, or how should I word this, or what should I post on this day? I could use Copilot to help bounce ideas back, especially when we have a small team.
Yeah.
That tool, having Copilot, makes our small team feel even bigger.
And you just launched that program, is that today?
Yes, we launched it today, so everyone should give it a check.
So we were talking with Riley. If you don't go to Newman's Own, they're having a fun influencer campaign that launched today. We can help her hit her KPIs and metrics, how important that is. How much time do you think this is saving you when you use Copilot instead of manually writing out all this content?
Oh, it is saving me so much time. Something that could take me, for a brief, you think one brief for every influencer, but that's not necessarily the case. I have to tailor it for the specific ask or the specific, campaign we're going to work for. So it could take me maybe an hour, 2 hours for that specific brief, and now I'm streamlining that to 30 minutes, tweaking what Copilot's giving me, especially with BizChat. You can go into seeing some of the older campaigns we've used and take some of the successes from that and then implement it into our new campaigns.
No, that's awesome. And I know that you were in marketing, but my understanding is that Newman's Own is using Copilot all across the organization, right?
Yes. So it's not just marketing. We have our legal team using it. We have our HR using it. Finance is using it. Our CEO is using it. It's not just one department's using it. It really is a whole company-wide.
Yeah, there's we were talking to the company recently, and the head of legal is saying it's sort of like having a legal assistant that works for her. And it's so interesting to see a company that's only 50 people, but each of these departments, marketing's 4 people, legal's only a handful, are really referring to Copilot as their new associate for whatever they do. And it's like really saving them time and money. I love the fact, because often you think, oh, how is legal going to use this? And in fact, they're saying, okay, it's actually like having a legal assistant, which I thought was super cool. What are you looking to do next? Like, so you've launched your first campaign using Copilot. What's the future of using AI in your marketing role?
I'm looking for 2025 already. You know, we're coming up with our campaigns, our big moments for 2025, and I'm going to use Copilot to help finalize those and help come up with different ideas, push the boundaries, maybe something that I wouldn't think about that Copilot could give me a suggestion and adapt that to make it more Newman's own. I'm also excited to use it for other, Microsoft apps that I don't use in my day-to-day, like Excel, PowerPoint, to make my experiences with those even better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in your normal flow of work, I think you said you start in BizChat. Is that right? Is that where you started it? So tell me, like, how do you start from the beginning of an ideation to the creation of your briefs?
So I'm going to use our campaign we just launched as an example. I was trying to come up with how am I going to make this social media challenge on, we want to launch it during our campaign. I was able to go back to BizChat and look through ideas, going back and forth between agencies and everything for what the campaign was, and I could go into BizChat and say, hey, here's the Good Taste Better campaign. Come up with a social media challenge, and was able to pull from all the emails, everything that we've written before, and give me a couple different ideas for what could a social media campaign look like. And I was able to streamline that, take my favorite bits and pieces for it, and make for what you would see today on our Instagram.
And that's great. That's a great example. We often see BizChat as the starting place. It's a place for ideation or research or insights. Again, it's using that web data as well as the data from your company, so she could use it to go back and refer to previous challenges she had instead of having to hunt through files, and then using that as a source of content creation. So we think that flow is pretty normal. And in this example, it's a marketing brief, but you can imagine any piece of content, whether it's a pitch deck or an email or a proposal that you're submitting. We work with a lot of customers who have to do a lot of the same work over and over again, doing things like proposals or RFPs, and they say this is saving them a ton of time because of having to write things from scratch. They can either pull old versions or they can automatically sort of update them. And you said that you're excited about using the apps, more core apps when you get back. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you for Riley for being on the stage. And I'm going to welcome my colleague ELIF to walk us through a cool demo to see how you can use it in real life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is 𝗦𝗲𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍, and I'm so happy to be here with you all today. We just heard from Riley in terms of how she's been using Copilot into her day-to-day business activities. We also heard a little bit about their future growth plans with Copilot and how they're aspiring to integrate it into even more business workflows. Now, I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to show you some live demos and hopefully bring some of those scenarios to life. As it is customary, we're going to say a little prayer to the demo gods to make sure we're blessed with good energies and we have a fast and stable internet connection. And that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So for this first example, I'm going to start using with Microsoft 365 Copilot Business Chat. And here I am making sure that I have selected the Work tab so that I can have Copilot reference over my work files. Now, imagine that I just had a meeting with my teammates about a new marketing campaign that we're about to run for an upcoming product launch. In this meeting, we talked about our business objectives, some of the specific timelines, as well as the product specifications. Now, I'm sure you can all relate to this. We go through so many meetings during the day, and unless you have a certain someone or a team specifically driving the follow-through, it is so easy for ideas and action items to get lost. But it doesn't really have to be this way. You can have Copilot be in the driver's seat for you and taking actions on your behalf and really just like alleviate the burden so you can focus on what really matters the most, make much faster progress, and create much more impactful manner. Now, keeping that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to Copilot to help me create a project plan for a 6-month marketing campaign that we have been talking about. And as you can see, this will be the prompt that I will be using. But before I hit send, there's one more thing that I want to do because I want to make sure I'm capturing those details from that discussion that took place. To do that, I'll use /, and heading over to the Meetings tab, I will be able to pull and point Copilot to the specific meeting that took place. And with that, my prompt is ready to go. As Copilot is taking time to think it through, you can see that I asked it to come up with some possible recommendations about the cities that we can run these events in, as well as some of the campaign activation ideas so that we can use those ideas to make those events even more culturally relevant. Now, as you can see, Copilot was able to go back to my meeting information, capture that, also reason over across my work context, and be able to come up with just that. It was able to give me the timelines, the cities that were in consideration, as well as the specific activation ideas that we should consider. Now, this looks great, and because I really want to treat this as my real-time project plan, what I can do is just going over to the Edit in Pages button, and I click on that one. And as you can see, with the click of a button, Copilot will be able to take that chat conversation and create a persistent and dynamic canvas for me, which is called as the Copilot Pages. So going forward, I will be able to take my real-time updates on this canvas, share it with my colleagues, the stakeholders, for us to be able to edit, give feedback, comment on it, and just collaborate real-time. Now, this is really pretty great, and as I continue to build upon my project plan, what I can do is use the second prompt, and now I want to be able to include a good work-best schedule into my plan, right? So this will be the prompt that I will be using. And as Copilot is hard at work, going through that, you can see that I asked it to create it in a table format, again, outlining the key milestones that we should consider for running these events, specifically call out the action item owners, like the due dates, as well as some of the possible next steps that we should consider paired with each milestone. And as you can see, Copilot was able to, again, create just that. Now, this looks great, and I want to make sure this is also included in my living and breathing project plan. So what I can do right now is click on Edit in Pages again, and you'll realize Copilot will be able to take in that knowledge and integrate it in this Copilot page, which I treat as my working canvas. Now, this looks great, and with that, I have my draft project plan ready to go. Now, next, as part of my marketing campaign creation workflow, this time I'm going to turn it over to Word, and the task at hand is to be able to create a messaging and positioning document for this campaign. And just by the same token, this time I want to be able to point Copilot to our product specification document. And just by the same token, I'll use /, pull in that product specifications document into my prompt. And with that, I'm going to hit send. And as you probably follow through the prompt that I've used, I've turned to Copilot to keep the specific sections on things like the messaging, the positioning. I've also asked some very specific questions, as in, hey, come up with some hashtags and possibly some catchphrases that we can use to customize our campaign, all for the purpose of making my messaging more robust and more accurate. And as you can see, Copilot was able to create that in no time. Again, this is a very beautiful first draft for me to go in and just keep iterating on. It includes things like campaign objectives, the key messages that we should think it through, the positioning statement, the target audience, all the way through tactics. It was also able to come up with the hashtags and the catchphrases that I've asked about. Now, this looks really good, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. And at this point, because we will be talking about our own product in relation to our competitors, I'm going to go ahead and ask Copilot to this time integrate a competitive analysis section. And for that purpose, this will be the prompt that I will be using. Again, I asked Copilot to create this section in a way that comparing our upcoming model to some of the existing models in the market. And also, I asked for its help to call out the differentiated features or unique features that are more flattering to us so that I can really go out and bolster my marketing messaging. As you can see, it was able to create a pretty robust competitive analysis section using those data-driven insights that were included in my previous document that I pointed to. Now, again, this looks like a great place to keep. And then finally, as I'm now getting ready to share some of those updates with my stakeholders, I created my project plan. Now I have a draft messaging and briefing document. I go through this, and then some of these sections on the document could probably use some love. So let's say you have a very text-heavy component in your document that you want to make it more visually appealing, or for your stakeholders to have an easier time consuming and digesting that information. What you can go out and do is really create or select a section for Copilot to help you on. And as you can see, I will ask Copilot to visualize it in a different format. For this purpose, I'll ask it to visualize as a table. And Copilot is hard at work trying to create that section to be able to make it more visually appealing, easier to digest and consume. And on one column, you're going to see those key aspects from the messaging. And on the other column, it has a very crisp summary of the details that we should think it through. Now, this is beautiful. With that, my draft messaging and positioning briefing document is also ready to go. Now, finally, as you continue to knock off your action items, it is really critical for you to be able to communicate your latest status updates or your progress across your stakeholders. This could be your teammates, your peers, as well as your executive leadership teams. Now, one way to do that is obviously using the good old emails in your Outlook. And imagine this isn't just a demo tenant only having a handful of emails, but imagine this is your actual inbox, right? And if you're anyone like me, you're probably wrestling with hundreds of emails every day. So before I actually craft out my message, what I'm going to do is ask Copilot to go through my emails and making sure that I can really capture the most important information and details right from my emails in my inbox. Let's go ahead and do that and see what it looks like. Again, in this prompt, I asked it to go through that to be able to specifically call out the things that are related to our product launch as well as our marketing campaign. And it does a pretty good job in terms of the things that I should keep in mind, talking about our project update, the status, the product development status, things like go-to-market strategy. So at this point, I feel pretty confident about what I had included on my document so far. So what I'm going to do is head over to the ribbon, start a new email to actually craft up my message. But it's never fun to start from scratch, right? So what I'm going to do is hit the draft with Copilot. And this time, I'm going to ask for help to help me create an opening paragraph that I can include my email. And this will be the prompt that I will be using. Let's see what it's going to be able to come up with. And with the click of a button, again, it does a pretty good job in terms of what I should consider in my opening paragraph. And again, this is something that you can play around with according to your liking, right? I really like to send very pointed and crisp messages. So in that case, I'm just going to go ahead and select Make It Shorter from the toggle. And it's iterating based on the prompt that I have just shared. So this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and keep it. And one last thing that I'm going to do here is actually integrate the documents that I have just created so that my stakeholders can see it and give me real-time edits. And as you can see, I will be able to pull in the marketing campaign document. What I can go ahead and do, of course, is to take the living and breathing project document and also integrate it into my email. So I clicked on Share, copy the link, and then as you can see, once I paste it here, it will show up as a persistent and live component of my email. So as soon as I send this email, my stakeholders will always be able to see the latest and the greatest information here. Hopefully you found these examples helpful, and it gave you some more inspiration about how we can put Copilot to work, and also how we can think about some of the business questions that you have in mind and start integrating. With that, I'm going to be handing it over back to Brenna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ELIF. And I think we had a Wi-Fi error-free demo, which was really hard. We're using a lot of Wi-Fi here, people. So thank you, ELIF, for doing such a great job. This was an awesome workflow, and it was kind of very much like the workflow that Riley described, right? Starting a work chat, bringing it into the core apps, and then using it to create documents, do follow-up. We were talking before this about how many meetings we go to where nothing comes from it, or you have to be the poor person in the meeting that's taking notes and hunting everyone down. And I think what we see here is the ability to have meetings or brainstorms or sessions cross-team and turn that into actual outputs that get the work done, that don't require a human kind of pushing it all behind the scenes. So what are the best practices for success? I'm just curious, how many business leaders or managers do we have in the room today? Okay, that's a good percentage. We talk to a lot of customers that are all in AI, and we certainly hope you are, right? Good ROI, good investments, happy employees. And we talk about what makes a successful deployment, which is really, really important. So there's some questions I'd have you think about as leaders here, which is your organization engaged and ready to adopt AI? You heard from Riley, her CEOs at every meeting say, AI is the future, integrate it into your workflow, right? That's so important. Start thinking about the areas in your business. We talked about there's all different groups, whether it's finance or legal or marketing or sales, or even cross-functional processes, like let's say closing the books. What are these business processes right now that you could make more efficient, do more quickly, have less human involvement, and start thinking about those? And then do you have the right change management and skilling culture? This is something we often see people skip, and it's super, super important to launching AI in a successful way. So when we talk about most employees are using Copilot, remember that 80% of employees are using AI of some kind already. It's really important for leadership to be completely behind AI. And that doesn't just mean the CEO, that doesn't just mean, the head of IT. We find it's really, really important, whether you're the manager of this business or you're the CEO, to make sure all your functional leaders are 100% bought in on AI. And that they all have projects that they want to run, and that every single person is involved. Because we find when it really infiltrates across org and across business, that's when the magic happens, right? If you've got 3 or 4 people in marketing doing it with themselves, but then they try to invite someone from a different team to the meeting who doesn't have Copilot, they don't have that experience. And what we find is the ability to move across team, across platform, and across app is where the real magic happens, and you get that really, really good AI. So kind of make sure everyone's around the proverbial table or the real table, and that they're all in on the bet, which is super important. We talked about key business scenarios. We do this at Microsoft. We call ourselves Customer Zero, and over the last year and a half, we've been working, and every single department has, on scenarios that work for them, right? We kind of looked at the things, certainly in my org, in marketing, and said, what are the things that are really hard, that are like sucking up a lot of time, really annoying projects? And we worked to implement workflows with Copilot around that so that they removed all these things. We found when we did that, that we had high engagement from employees. We were able to increase the daily usage of Copilot. They reported they were happier and more efficient. So it's kind of finding those places to start. Once you get that first brick that falls, like, oh, that was a win, right? With AI, we saved time, people were happier. The rest of them start to fall. So we really love exploration, right? Like kind of playing around with BizChat, like the making funny pictures thing, like that's awesome. Okay, so do that too. But like, please pick those big, meaty business things, because then it allows you to invest more in the future. And I think the third one, which is really interesting, it's one that we often see people under-invest in, is training and learning and onboarding. This is so incredibly critical. AI is new. Like, it will be as revolutionary as like personal computing. But we didn't expect people to like get computers and just figure it out really quick by themselves, and like in 6 months later their jobs were different and they were awesome at it. No, it was definitely a process. And I think when you throw a bunch of individuals a tool that they aren't trained and they aren't onboarded on, it's a lot, right? It's a change in the way you work. I think instinctually we all open up Outlook or Word, we kind of start writing, like at least I do, right? You start, and instead we want to flip that whole process where you start with a prompt, right? Which is completely different than the way we were all trained to work. So it's incredibly important that once you buy, once you employ, and once you roll it out across your org, that there's really great training resources. Obviously, we make a bunch of these. We try to make them as accessible as possible to use them. Another thing that's been super helpful is highlighting what we call champs, like AI champs, where in each organization or each function, you kind of get a group of chats together, like your super fans. And those super fans become the experts, and then everyone asks questions, and they get to be highlighted. That's another thing that we've seen be super, super successful. Because obviously it's a big investment, and it's one that we want you all to get that ROI from, but you're only gonna get it if you follow it all the way through and you fully implement it. So where do we go from here? We talked about ROI. Again, it's probably one of the #1 questions I get from customers is, I love it, I want it, but do we have the ROI? So we developed a really thorough report. It's awesome. You saw some of the data earlier today. We encourage you get it, you read it, you look at it. If you're a partner, you share it with your customers, you bring it into your organization and start showing how those investments can return for you. I think it's time to start making a plan. When I talk to customers, like, this isn't something that you can avoid, right? It's like, this wave is coming, it's already in 80% of your org, so it's time to make a plan and be ready. I'm like saying, you're gonna surf or the wave's gonna crash on your head. Those are the two options. So it's definitely time to make a plan, and make a plan now because your employees are already using it. So you wanna make sure that you're controlling the way that they are using AI in your organization. Obviously, we'd love for you to get Copilot M365, right? It's a pretty good product, we gave you the pitch. There's some special offers we have inside of the admin center. We'd love you to take a look. Now is a great time. We're also launching a new pricing where it's annual monthly, where you can pay monthly for Copilot. That's coming in December. We heard a lot of requests for that, so we're super excited to roll that out, make it a little bit easier to pay. And then obviously, we'd love for you to help grow your business with Copilot. And here is the list of all of these resources that are focused for SMB that we've made to help you, your teams, and your customers be successful. Thank you all so much. And those who are passionate about small and medium business like I am, we've got some other awesome sessions going on today about Copilot or not, focus on helping grow this really important area of our business.